So what's being suggested here is that this is an interruption. This is an interruption to the regular programming of beliefs, ideas, concepts, anything and everything. This is a don't adjust your screens. This is just a disruption. But no one's getting disrupted. Just ideas, concepts, and anything that you can think of is a disruption. This is like an emergency alert. No one's here. There's never been anyone here that you snooze off, and don't really read. So everything that is perceived, everything that is believed, everything that's conceptualized is being illuminated as something that is not real. So this disruption is not for anyone. It's just a disruption. I'm going to repeat. Everything, anything that you perceive, the getting it, the not getting it, the understanding, the non understanding, the confusion, the seeming clarity is being disrupted here. The one that's perceiving all of this, the me that thinks that it is real or it's not real, is being interrupted. All that there is this. And the seeming interruptions of what this is what's being disrupted. All that there is this, and there's nothing outside of this. Even the seeming idea that there's something other than this is the one that's being illuminated or disrupted. It's the same thing. Why so serious? It's like a joker in a deck of cards of seriousness. There's this seriousness about this communication that people really want to get it, really want to understand it, really want to know it, wants to become experts, wants to become critics, and that's completely all right. There's nothing wrong or right about that. But what's being expressed here is not understandable. It's not knowable. It can't be. It
Wants to
can't be.
become experts, wants to
Sorry.
become critics.
There's
And
an
that's
echo
completely
there.
all right. There's nothing wrong, all right?
All right. There's an echo there of nothing. So this is nothing, which is also everything. This is not a knowing. This is not anything at all. There's nothing here to get. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to figure out. Because the one that's trying to figure this out, the one that's trying to know this, is the disruptor. So this is a disruption of the disruptor, the one that's trying to disturb, the one that's trying to seemingly trying to do something, but it can't really do anything. It can't really disrupt anything because what's being expressed here, which is what's obvious, is that this is the unwavering stillness. That no matter what disruptions, no matter what kind of thinking, ideas, concepts is unreal. And why so serious again? Since there's nothing happening, there's nothing going on, this is nothing at all. And even saying this is nothing, the moment that you think you arrived at nothing, it becomes not nothing because there's also no nothing. It's really simple. It's so simple that it doesn't even have words. It's the laughter. Carol tilting her head back. Someone trying to figure it out. Someone wondering, what am I doing here? You're not here. No one's here. There's never been anyone here. And that's what's obvious. The seemingly chaotic, whatever is happening, the seemingly is actually also stillness. This is stillness, appearing as movements, appearing as nodding, appearing as shaking head, appearing as agreeing, appearing as disagreeing. Whatever is happening is not here, not happening. So before you say this is just what's happening, when it becomes an understanding, this is to disrupt that as well. Because the one that thinks that this is what's happening has made it into a happening. It's actually an unhappening and a happening simultaneously appearing, but for no one.
So Emerson, you can say it's
Hey, Anita.
not it's also not happening.
No, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. Nothing is everything. So nothing is happening. Seemingly there's everything happening, but nothing is happening.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go into a little bit of a story here, just to get started, apparently. So once upon a time, in timelessness, there seemed to appear like a wrinkle called time, a wrinkle in timelessness. And that wrinkle in timelessness seemingly appeared, but did not really appear. It seemingly created this and that. This is it and this isn't. Created this separation. But once it's created, also got uncreated. Its perfection appearing as an error. Its infinity appearing as finite. So in this appearance, it's just an appearance, seemingly there is an idea or an illusion or a dream of me moving through time and space, me seeking for timelessness, me seeking for home, separation looking for wholeness. The homeless looking for home. Seemingly opposites, but there's no such thing as opposites, really. There's no such thing as separation. There's never been anyone separate. There's never been a wrinkle in timelessness. It's always been timelessness. So in this myth of an apparent happening or a big bang, what seemingly appeared also is the Armageddon, the Alpha and the Omega appearing simultaneously. In this apparent story, the story of me or the story of individuals, the story of free will, the story of choice, the story of cause and effect, multiple stories appearing as an illusion. But this story is a felt sense of realness, that I exist, I am, subject, object. It feels really real because this is the dream of realness. The dream of separation appears completely real. That's why there's this felt sense of a me. That's why there's this idea that I have to find something, that I am separate, that this is time, that there's something to get here. There's you and I. So since this is just a story in timelessness, it has a beginning and an end. But the beginning and the end actually appears now and not now. There's no beginning, there's no end, just apparent opposites, but really it's all sameness. It's all wholeness, it's all completeness. It's all this and this isn't. It seems really confusing, but actually it's not. It's actually really clear that what's just apparently happening is just an appearance. It's quite obvious that the one that is thinking all of this or the one that's thinking over there are not really separate. It's just a story, it's just an idea. It doesn't have any meaning, it doesn't have any purpose, because it's just a story. But in the story, there's a believer that believes that this story is real, that I started and I end, that I will get there because I'm not there, that there's a you and there's a me, that there's truth and there are lies, that there's somewhere to go, there's something to drop, something will fall away. It's all contained in this story, this wholeness appearing as fragmented stories. But since it's a story, the storyteller, or the root of the story, is also illusory, which is the wrinkle in timelessness, which is the error that's not really an error because it's perfect, which is really wholeness or infinity appearing as this and this isn't. It's really simple, and it's not really confusing because it's just one appearance. There's no separate appearances. But seemingly, in this apparent appearance of individuals looking for something, there seems to be separateness. There seems to be different squares. There seems to be a little bit of confusion, shock, smiling, whatever seems to be appearing. But that's just wholeness appearing as multiplicity, unicity appearing as multiples. Once the belief or once the story is seen that it's just a story, then all of the other stories become pages of a book, become different chapters, become page 1 and page 2 and page 10. They're just words on a paper. Once it's seen that it's just a story, the belief that this book is real, that this book, the writing and everything, the scene, the seer, and the seeing is completely not separated, then it's seen as a fiction. It's seen as a dream. I'm just using an analogy because, again, it's hard to explain something that is quite obvious and quite simple that doesn't really need an understanding. So this is more of an unfolding rather than a getting something. This is not about knowing. This is the unknowing. This is the tumbling down of belief system. Once it's seen that the believer is illusory, a dream, I don't know what words you want to use, fictional, unreal, but feels real. All of this seemingly descriptions of something that is just a wrinkle. Just a seeming error that's corrected right away. It's pure and innocent. So there's an error that I think that I'm separate. Once it's seen, none of that actually is real. Once it's seen, all of the belief system, all of the ideas, all of the hope, the dreams completely fall down. The book is burned. because it's not really relevant. The book is seen as something that you can toss. It doesn't even need recycling. So once this timelessness is seen as timelessness, no one has ever left home. No one has been lost. This is timelessness appearing as segregated individual appearing in a time and space dream that feels real, but it's not. And it's completely unbelievable because the one that's listening to this wants to believe or not believe. Believing and not believing are both belief systems. So what's being exposed here is that there's no way around it. Believing that there's a me, not believing that there's a no me, is a belief system. But seemingly, there's no one really believing, but seemingly the one that's believing all of this is the culprit. is the glitch in timelessness. The one that seemingly wants to understands all of this, the one that's trying to capture this, the one that's trying to understand it or saying that I don't understand it, is the same. Is the zero in the zero's journey. William, go. I actually don't know what I'm going to talk about today. Um, because what's being expressed is already basic. It's very obvious. It's very undeniably this. It's the sitting on the chair, it's the watching, it's the seeing, it's the looking, it's the hearing. It's the apparent trying to understand, misunderstanding. All of that is not really happening. None of this is happening. There's really no one speaking here. There's really no one listening there. It seems like it. It appears that there is a speaking happening here, a sound happening, but it's just a happening. There's really no one here. No one is there, no one is here, no one everywhere, no 7.5 billion people. This is just an appearance. This appearance seems really real, though. The illusion is that this is a felt sense of reality, a felt sense of a person moving through time, a person in separation, someone listening and someone understanding. Since everything that's going to be talked about here is just really circling around something that cannot really be fully understood or even understood, this is like a dance. This is like a trying to kind of like express what's already extremely obvious, that there's nothing happening, that there's no one listening, that nobody has ever been here. There are a few things that seems completely real, like time. That there was somehow there was a email that was received earlier. There was a clicking on the Zoom link. There was a schedule that was looked. There was an error made for the schedule for the European crowd. That all seemed to happen in time. There seems to be a history of seeking. There seems to be an expectation of a future happening. I hope I drop on in this session today, so I don't have to go to the Sunday pop-up meetings. I hope it will be finished all today. Since nothing is on offer here and nothing's really being given to you because there's no you, this is just an expression, an illumination that there is nothing happening since there's no one for it to happen to. And the time that is seemingly felt. I woke up this morning. I'm going to go for a drink later. is something that appears in a story, in a storyline. So the I, the me, the you, is connected with time. So the me seems to survive in the story of time. I was born in 1971. I turned 50 this year. Um, there's going to be a meeting. All of that happens in the apparent time. But time is being seen as something that is real, but time doesn't really exist. Time is an illusion because the timekeeper and the time are both illusory. The storyteller and the story are both illusory. The listener and the speaker are both illusory. So this is really just nothing appearing as everything. Not even appearing, nothing is everything. So everything that you can think of is nothing. But the illusion of realness, the illusion of separation, the dream that this is separate, that we are individuals, it feels completely real. So you can say that this is real and unreal, appearing at the same time. This is true and false, appearing together. This is seemingly a happening that's not really happening, but seemingly it's happening to you. That I am here, you are here, we're together. There's a we, there's an us. But all of this is an illusion. The flimsy veil of illusion is the holder of all of the ideas. The idea of time, the idea of separation, the idea of everything. I said everything is nothing. But the belief in everything keeps I am holding this 99.99% empty. I believe that there's this sound coming up from silence. I believe that I'm seeing objects, subject, object. I believe that there's you and me. I believe that I will get something from this. It's all coming from that believer that is a really flimsy illusion of something that is not. Since there's no one here and there's no one there, no one knows anything. No one knows anything for sure. There's no location. There is no position in what's being said here. If you notice, someone actually pointed out that these talks, I talk about concepts after concepts only to dispel that story is being mentioned to expose that it's just a story that's not really real, but appears to be real. So when someone becomes an authority in this one, someone pretends that they have an authority or a knowing about this one, they're talking about something that is a knowing, something that is a belief system. And it's very faint sometimes. Some people believe that this is, we're completely real. That's a belief. Some people believe that, there is a brain. That's a belief. There's nothing wrong or right about that. It's just what's happening. What's being expressed here, that this is the illusion of all belief of everything that I've said. I don't even believe what I'm saying. It's just coming out. There's just this clarity here that cannot really be fully expressed. And that's the best thing that I can do. There's an honesty here because it felt like when I was a spiritual teacher, this is a story, that all I told were lies. So this is a full disclosure that there's no one here. Since it's seen that there's never been anyone here, there's never been anyone anywhere. There's never been anyone in time and space. There's never been anyone in history. There's never been anyone at all. But there's this belief. Again, there's this belief, there's this position. Here, I believe. There's a conviction that this is really happening. That is also belief. What's being expressed here is a suggestion that there's nothing happening, that no one is here. It's a suggestion. This is just a radical honesty of what was seen here when this apparent unseeing or unknowing or the dissolution of all belief system is not a belief to believe that there's no one here. It's an obviousness that's what's being expressed here. The obviousness is shared by many speakers, mostly radical, uncompromising speaker, that there's never been anyone here. It's being expressed beautifully. It's being expressed radically. Sometimes really hardcore. If you have any questions and if you want to discuss this uncertainty, certain that there's never been anyone here, or if you want to just talk about anything, please go ahead. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. So what's being suggested here is that everything is a story. I'm a story, you're a story, everything is a story. So everything that comes up is a story. Every single question is a story. Every single answer is a story. It's a never-ending story. It reminds me of that movie what I watched when I was a kid. And this is just a story. I'm going into story right now. Never-ending story. It's about a kid that was supposed to save this fantasy land called Fantasia because it was being destroyed by the malevolent forces of a villain called the Nothing. So the Nothing, everything that it touches gets destroyed. So what's being expressed here is similar to that. I'm just going to mute just a second. Is that everything that what's being expressed here is a story, and this illumination is to spotlight or to see through that story that the storyteller, is a story. So there's nothing that's really real, but the story feels real. Separation feels real. But that's a story too. Everything that comes up is a story. There's nothing wrong or right with the story. True story or fictional story is also a story. So everything and nothing is a story. Nothing is a story. Emptiness is a story. Freedom is a story. All of these words is a story. There's no primary story. It's just a story reinforcing the story that it's real, that this is really happening. There is nothing happening. You can also say, if everything is a story, and it points out to a story, it's just a story, it's a never-ending story over and over again, what's really going on? Well, it's a story as well, but nothing is happening. Nothing is going on. There's no one here. But that's just another story again. So what are we doing here? What we're doing here is also a story. Trying to understand a story. Trying to get out of the story. Trying to reveal the story. Trying to end the story. But all that I have said is just a story trying to get out of the story. So the story can't get out of the story because getting out of the story is also a story. So this is a story that's just trying to point out, just trying to express, trying to suggest that everything and anything is a story. Stories about liberation, stories about awakening, stories about falling away, stories about the me, stories about the no me, the stories about freedom, the stories about bondage, the stories about suffering. Everything and anything that comes up is a story. Because the storyteller and the story are both stories. Real stories and fictional stories are stories. What's that comment there? Everlasting story, yes. But that's just a story too, because every word tells a story. It points to a story. What's being expressed here does not have any words. Emptiness. It's can't be told in a story. So all I can do, no one has ever told it. No one's ever read the story. No one's ever told the story. No one is in the story. It's like a book of blank pages. Yeah. Everlasting is also a story. Yep. Also a story anyway. Um, but what's being expressed here is what's being suggested here that although this is a story, this is also the end of the story. There's no beginning, there's no middle, there's no end. But this is the end and the beginning at the same time. So all the stories, seemingly there's pages, but they're all appearing all at once. No epilogue, no chapter 1, no chapter 2, no sequels, no book 2, no trilogies. It's all happening all at once. There's no time, there's no space, there's no characters, all at once. There's no hero in the journey. There was once a time in the story that I thought that everybody's a hero going through their own journey, trying to figure out their journey. So they go through these levels, they go through these stages. I think there's like 12 or 7. So happy Valentine's Day. I don't really talk about unconditional love a lot. I don't know if you notice. I'll tell you a story first and I'll talk about it. When I was a spiritual teacher, in my bio, it said Emerson is a teacher of unconditional love. So I had to kind of like almost be a saint as a teacher because I was supposed to be a teacher of unconditional love. But I had a really wrong idea about unconditional love. I thought it was about attainment. I thought it was about sainthood. I thought it was just many different illusions about what is now so obvious that is completely unattainable. It's completely unknowable. You can call it the great mystery. You can also say that it's nothing appearing as everything simultaneously. You can also call it freedom, unconditional freedom. You can call it home. I know it's confusing. All of these words are just leading up or pointing to something that cannot be pointed at. So what I'm going to attempt is I'm going to try to dance around it, hoping that these words, this dreamlish, can expose or illuminate what seems to be hidden but actually is appearing in everything. Unconditional love is total blindness to separation. Unconditional love is instant forgiveness because it doesn't see anyone. Unconditional love cannot really be explained, but here I am trying to explain it, and this is also unconditional love, trying to explain the unexplainable. You can also call unconditional love as a paradox. It seems to be hidden, but it's appearing in everything. It seems to be sought for, but it's already everything. It's not a condition, it's not a state, it's not an attainment. It's not something that you can embody. It's not something that you can achieve. Because it's already everything. It doesn't really make sense. We used to think of love as romantic love. But that appears in conditions. We look at, mother's love as well. That seemingly also appears in conditions. When I used to think that I was in conditional love, I used to do selfless service and trying to help others. I used to, walk the streets and help people. But seeing this, that there's no one being helped and there's no one helping, it's just unconditional love appearing as everything. Unconditional love being talked about is a bit of a shaky ground because I can also say that murder, death, evil is unconditional love. Kind of like when you're watching a safari, you see a lion and a gazelle being eaten. That's unconditional love. But the moment that we put conditions in what unconditional love is, the moment that we try to understand it, we're trying to limit or put conditions in something that doesn't really have any limits. It's boundlessness. There's no source. So it's not separate. It's sourceless. It's not a being. It's not an entity. And again, I'm trying to dance again to express that unconditional love is appearing as the squares looking. Unconditional love is appearing as the brick wall. Unconditional love is appearing as a thought of, I will never get this. Unconditional love is appearing as, I think I got this. Unconditional love will appear as questions about unconditional love. Unconditional love will appear as roses or a lack of roses on Valentine's Day. Unconditional love appears as heartbrokenness and being in love. What's being expressed here is there's this in loveness here and there, but there's no in and out. It's just whole loveness. Loving itself lovingly. So unconditional love is loving itself unconditionally, without any limitations, without any kind of needing. It's blindness. It's wholeness. It doesn't have any opposite. It doesn't have any contradictions. Although contradictions may appear in as unconditional love. There's William appear.